Warning. The following video contains scenes of graphic violence. Viewer discretion is advised.
Growing up, New Year's was never a big holiday for me. My family never really hosted a party or anything, so my New Year's Eve tended to be just me watching TV until the clock struck midnight, and then it was off to bed. This continued into high school. By that point I was tired of doing nothing on New Year's, but I didn't really have many friends, so there weren't a whole lot of options. It was my senior year of high school when I finally got invited to a New Year's Eve party. The invite came from Jake, one of my classmates on the track team. We talked a lot during practices and stuff, but I never really hung out outside of school, which is why I was surprised when he texted me the invite. I tried playing it cool even though I was really excited to finally be doing something on New Year's. He told me it was just going to be a house party with a lot of kids from our school and a few out-of-towners. I replied saying it sounded good and I'd see him in a few days. New Year's Eve came and Jake picked me up around 9 p.m. There were a few other guys in the car that I recognized but I never actually talked to. We just made small talk on the way to the party. And one of the guys asked me if I was going to try to find a girl at this party to kiss at midnight, and I jokingly said we'll see what happens. We eventually arrived at our destination. The first thing I noticed was that the party was quite large, with a ton of cars parked in the driveway and along the street. I had always been an introvert, so being around a ton of people was not really my thing, but I just kept reminding myself that this was way better than sitting at home and doing nothing. At first I was pretty uncomfortable being around a huge crowd, but I eventually calmed my nerves and started having fun. I was dancing along to music with everyone else when I noticed this girl looking at me. Jake eventually noticed too.
Hey man, that girl keeps looking at you. You should go talk to her.
I don't know, man. She might have been looking at someone else.
Dude, she was definitely looking at you. Just go talk to her. What do you got to lose?
Fine, I will. I started to head over to her, but realized she wasn't there anymore. I turned back toward Jake. Hey man, that girl is gone. Did you see where she went?
No. Sorry. I'm sure she'll be back. Probably just went to the bathroom or something.
I decided to go grab a drink while I waited for her to come back. 20 minutes passed with no sign of her. Slightly disappointed, I headed to another room to get away from all the loudness. I checked my phone. It was almost 11. Looks like I won't be getting that New Year's kiss, I laughed to myself. I was about to head back to the party when I noticed someone else had entered the room. I looked up from my phone, and I was surprised to see the girl who I thought was looking at me earlier.
What are you doing in here all by yourself?
Just needed to get away from the craziness for a bit.
Yeah, I totally understand. Big parties aren't really my thing. So, did you come here by yourself?
No, I came with a friend from school.
Oh, cool. I came here with my friend and her boyfriend, but they've been doing their own thing. My name's Amanda, by the way.
For the next 15 minutes, we talked. She told me she was from a town an hour away, which is why I'd never seen her around. Eventually, I asked her if she wanted to dance, and she said yes. When we started dancing, I checked the time. It read 11:20. Things continued as normal until about 10 minutes till midnight. That's when Amanda started acting really nervous. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
But she clearly wasn't. For roughly the next 6 minutes, she kept checking her phone for the time and had a nervous look on her face. If you're worried about the time, I'm sure everyone here will do a countdown to midnight.
I know, but it has to be exact.
What do you mean?
Never mind, forget I said anything.
I checked my phone. 2 minutes to midnight. At this point, Amanda couldn't even focus. She was looking everywhere but at me. The countdown started. People were shouting all around me, but I could only focus on Amanda. She looked terrified. Hey, are you sure you're all right? If you don't want to be here anymore, I won't be offended. Amanda was now staring intently at the clock on her phone. At this point, the place was going crazy. The next thing that happened was kind of a blur. As soon as the alarm on my phone went off, signaling midnight, Amanda went up to me and kissed me. It happened in an instant, and then she started to leave. I moved toward her to say goodbye when I noticed she was crying. Amanda, are you all right?
I'm sorry. I didn't want to die.
Then she ran through the crowd of people, and I lost sight of her. At the time, I couldn't even comprehend what had just happened. I tried looking for her outside, but she was gone. I eventually met up with Jake and got ready to go home. He asked me how my night went, and I just said it was fun, but didn't mention Amanda. The whole situation was freaking me out. The terrified look on her face and what she said. What the hell was she talking about? Did she think I was going to hurt her or something? And if she did, why would she kiss me? A few weeks went by and I just tried to forget the whole situation. I realized I forgot to ask for her number at the party, so I couldn't even get an explanation from her. I just wanted to know if she was okay. I tried asking around to see if anybody knew her, but nobody did. Months went by and I was eventually able to move on. I started college in the fall and life was pretty normal. Then, 1 month until New Year's Eve, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Amanda. She wanted to meet up with me and talk. I was so surprised, but agreed. We met up on campus. I had a range of emotions when I first saw her. I was excited to see her again, but also angry thinking about the way she left me to worry about her without an explanation.
Hey, listen, I'm sorry about leaving you at the party the way I did. I just felt so guilty for what I did to you.
What do you mean? And why did you take so long to reach out to me? I was really worried about you for a long time.
I'm sorry, but I couldn't think of a way to explain it that you would believe.
Just tell me. She paused.
You've had a curse placed on you.
I'm sorry, but that's your explanation? You're right. I don't believe you.
I figured you wouldn't. I didn't either when I was first told. This curse, it only takes effect on New Year's Eve at midnight exactly. The person who carries the curse must kiss someone at exactly midnight on New Year's Eve, or they will die.
At this point, I was more amused than anything. Go on.
Whoever kisses the cursed person at midnight has the curse passed on to them. The only way to get rid of it is to kiss someone else at exactly midnight on New Year's Eve.
What if I decide not to go out? Is a random person going to show up at my house and kill me?
As long as you are inside your house at midnight, you are safe. I don't know why, but the thing, it's some type of demon. It can't enter your house. It can only kill you if you're away from your house at midnight and you haven't kissed someone.
A demon that shows up to kill you if you haven't kissed someone at midnight? At this point, I was beginning to think Amanda was legitimately insane.
I know you think I'm crazy, but trust me on this. If you leave your house on New Year's Eve, you must kiss someone at midnight. Please, I don't want something to happen to you.
I wanted to take the thing as a huge practical joke, but the look on Amanda's face was the same one she had the night of the party. She looked terrified, and it scared the hell out of me. New Year's Eve night arrived, and Amanda's story was in the back of my mind. I wasn't going to leave my house anyway because I didn't have any plans, but I was still a little freaked out. Nothing unusual was happening. I was watching New Year's Eve parties on TV when I decided to go to the kitchen and grab a snack. That's when I noticed someone standing in my front yard, staring at me. From far away, it looked like a girl. I figured it was just my imagination, and I went upstairs. I came downstairs an hour later. She was still standing there, in the same spot. At this point, I was completely freaked out. I was going to call the police when I realized what was really happening. Good one, Amanda, I thought, standing in my front yard on New Year's Eve to try to scare me. I headed to my front door and opened it. I started walking toward her. Okay, you got me. I was freaked out. Now come inside. It's cold as hell out here. I was 10 feet from her when I stopped. From far away, it looked like a girl, but up close I could immediately tell this thing wasn't human. Where a hand should have been, there were claws, and there was just darkness where a face should have been. Out of fear, I dropped my phone, and when I went to pick it up, it read 11:59. Only 15 seconds to midnight. Oh, shit. I immediately took off sprinting toward my house. I was almost at the door when I felt something grab me. Its claws on my leg felt like my soul was being ripped apart. I struggled to get inside. I could feel myself slipping away. I don't know if it was more adrenaline or fear, but I was able to get one last burst of energy and push my body past the door. I felt the thing let go of my leg. I immediately slammed the door shut. The next day, I contacted Amanda and told her I believed her. I don't blame her for putting the curse on me. Can't blame someone for not wanting to die. I just can't bring myself to put the curse on someone else. At least not yet. So I wait in my house on New Year's Eve. It's what I've done the past 4 years. The demon waits in my yard every New Year's, just staring, waiting for me to come outside. I know I'll eventually have to go out there on New Year's and find someone to kiss. I now understand the pain Amanda felt having to put this burden on someone else. So if you see me at a New Year's Eve party and want to avoid me, I'll understand, but I apologize in advance to whomever I end up kissing. I'm sorry. I just don't want to die.
All of the events described here are true. Make of it whatever you shall desire. I always feel strange on New Year's Eve, especially when it's the half hour before New Year's Day. Suddenly, I feel as though the last half hour of a year or decade actually means something, unlike when it's the last half hour of a day. This time around was no exception. It was soon to be January 1st, 2015. By 11:30 p.m., my family and I were praying for a good year. We're a religious Catholic family, but we don't take it too seriously like some of those extremist nuts who make us look bad. We finished our prayers at 11:42 p.m. with me leading my family and saying the Apostles' Creed. None of us had it memorized, but I had it in my confirmation book. I received the sacrament of confirmation in February 2014. From 11:42 p.m. and on, we eagerly awaited the arrival of 2015. I got out my camera and began to record at 11:51 p.m., right as my older sister and my stepfather began playing with my little sister. Much of the video was like that. We threw some of her dolls around as she watched them, causing her to laugh very hard. When it got to 11:58 p.m., my mother got 4 red plastic cups and some wine. She poured a very small amount of wine for my older sister and me, saying they're almost old enough to drink. When she gave us our cups filled with a small lick of wine, she said it's only for toasting. Of course, she didn't give any to my little sister. She didn't seem to mind anyway. At midnight, we toasted each other as we watched the fireworks go off on the Space Needle on live television. When I sat back down, I realized that I'd have to drink my cup. I didn't know if I should, but I gave it a go anyway. I took one sip and immediately handed it back to my mother. It tasted horrible, though I admitted, at least I tried it. I can't recall if my older sister drank from her cup. I recorded until about 12:05 a.m. From then on, the New Year's joys seemed to die down. I used the computer for another hour before I got a call. I checked who was calling me, and it was my friend Daniel. Daniel and I have known each other since August 31st, 2009. I cannot count how many times I visited his house within the time we've known each other. In 2014, I began spending the night more often at his house, with the first instance of 2014 being New Year's Day. He and I are the definition of best friends. I left what I was doing on the computer and went to my room to talk to Daniel. He and I shared the obligatory Happy 2015 greeting before talking about pretty much nothing. Typical talks between 17-year-old friends. We began talking about Spider-Man potentially returning to Marvel, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, how well we thought J.K. Simmons portrayed J. Jonah Jameson, Sam Jackson's portrayal of Nick Fury, and other, admittedly, really nerdy things. Daniel was practically born a Marvel fan, whereas I had only recently become a Marvel fan. We'd been talking for a while before I went to close out everything I was doing on my computer. We then resumed talking. The second half of our conversation began with us doing a dumb role play over the phone. Daniel pretended to be Foxy the Pirate Fox, and I pretended to be his roommate. Of course, the way those usually went was that Foxy would act like a sex-hungry creep, and I would be the next victim. We meant nothing by it, though. It was all just dumb fun. After a while, it was already close to 3 a.m. By then, I was already in bed. Daniel was still pretending to be Foxy, and I was still pretending to be his scared little roommate. The conversation would have ended with him crooning, "Nighty-night," or "I'll see you tonight, matey." in that deep and rough voice he used to pretend to be foxy. The phone would have hung up and I would have been well on my way to sleep. I would have been so much happier if that happened. The weird stuff began when we stopped the roleplay. Daniel said that he felt like he was in a dark bedroom with long curtains. This piqued my curiosity because I'd seen a place like that in a dream I had back in 2012. I remember exactly what the bedroom looked like. It was only barely lit by whatever light was outside. The light looking pale lavender in hue, and I remember seeing the circular bed that sat before the window. The window was draped with very tall satin curtains, and I remember the bedroom had a bit of an uneasy vibe to it. It was imprinted on my mind so clearly that I remembered it long after I woke up. I asked Daniel if he saw this, and he said that he could. Not long after that, he and I both began to feel what felt like tiny claws digging into the tops of our skulls. They wouldn't relent, and it almost felt like I was about to get brain surgery or something. And when those feelings went away, they were replaced by the sight of a face. The face looked at me with wide eyes, and they weren't blinking. I saw a long nose and a horrid grin that accompanied it. It just wouldn't stop staring at me, no matter what I did. I was afraid to shut off my phone, the only light source I had at that ungodly hour. The face then slowly began to rot away. The eyes fell out, the nose grew shorter, and the grin got wider as the flesh melted to reveal ghastly white cheekbones. It continued to melt until nothing was left but a skull. We then both of us heard screaming. At first it sounded like someone exhaling to make it sound like a crowd cheering. But as it traveled further into our ears, it became a death rattle. And once it reached our brains, it became the screams of a man set ablaze. The sheer loudness of those screams made my brain feel like it was going to TV static. The skull receded before charging at me with a wide-open jaw. After that, I felt as though the world was upside down above me and I was flying, lying down. I saw what I thought was a city, and I felt uneasy as the thought of how high I was flying intruded into my mind. More faces began to surround me, each of them staring like the first one. I tried to talk to Daniel in order for me to stay sane, yet every time I tried to talk, I was interrupted by more ghastly faces. One of them looked like a doll face with a blonde bob, though the eyes were empty and near the center of the face, and it sported a thin smile wider than its own head. I even remember seeing bared teeth flash before my eyes, as though the person who possessed them absolutely loathed me. At that time, I saw myself walking in a cemetery. My head must have hung very low, because my view of it was directly top down. I continued to walk until I stopped at an open grave. Within it contained a corpse. It was the body of someone I love and care about very much, who I will call Bill for the sake of his anonymity. I began to cry as I saw Bill lowered into the grave, and I knew I had to describe this to Daniel right as I saw it. Daniel said that he knew Satan had conquered the world, replacing everything that wasn't in his likeness with demons. To make matters worse, Satan pinned all of the blame on Daniel, and it seemed as though the damage was irreversible. After that, I reassured Daniel to remain strong and persevere. I told him that no matter what, these things were figments. They would never happen. I assured him that all of it was only an effort to drive us insane, and that we would get through it. After I said those things, what we saw finally began to fade away. By 4:40 a.m., everything was back to normal. However, I felt like a changed person. Feelings of fear were replaced with those of solemn anxiety, similar to someone who had just returned from war. Since then, I have wondered if we'd developed PTSD, though I couldn't say for sure. The conversation had died down to near silence. Right when it ended, my mind already began to suppress the memories of those sights. I felt as though my mind was saving those memories in order for me to write them down later, and then it would forget them completely. This is the only way I can cope with what I saw in those godforsaken hours. Daniel went to bed shortly after these events, and our conversation officially ended at 4:51 a.m. I, however, did not feel tired anymore. I wasn't sure I could go to sleep, so I stayed up for the rest of the night watching YouTube videos in order to calm myself down. I didn't go to sleep until after 8 a.m., and then I woke up at 1:51 p.m. I went down to the living room and began to type out the words you're reading now. Recording these events has helped me cope with them. It's allowed me to share what happened to me that night and keep it around for as long as I may desire. Even as I write this, my memories of the events are slowly dying. Only after I complete and publish this can I finally begin to forget. It's as I said to Daniel after everything happened. Some things in life are going to be forgotten eventually. Some things are things you don't want to forget. And some things are better left forgotten. I'm not fat. Not even a little. Actually, I'm pretty underweight for my height, which is a constant battle with my primary physician, who worries about eating disorders, despite the fact that I most certainly do not have one. No, not fat. But there is a word for what I am. They call it skinny fat. Okay, so what's skinny fat? Well, it's when someone is skinny, like me, and doesn't gain weight no matter how terribly they eat, but in return, they are wildly unhealthy, because they eat so poorly. That's where I was sitting at the beginning of the year. I'm not stupid. I know that my lifestyles and habits are unhealthy. I don't exercise, I eat like shit, and in turn, I'm always sick. I'm always having stomach problems and feeling faint and dizzy. Physically, my life is kind of a nightmare, and I have no one to blame but myself. So this year, like many other people, I decided things would be different. I was gonna get healthy, goddammit. I was gonna work out. I was gonna eat right. And hopefully, I'd see an improvement in my health. So I did what any other poor sucker does when their life is a mess that they have no idea how to fix. I made it my New Year's resolution. I was in luck because a new gym had just opened up in my neighborhood and they were giving out discounted memberships for the first 100 or so members. Of course, I signed up immediately. This is perfect, I said to myself. If I'm spending money on a gym membership, it means that I'll definitely go. As if that's ever worked out for anyone. I went to their website to sign up, and as I was perusing their options, I saw something interesting. Personal trainers. You know, I'd never given much thought to a personal trainer before. I just assumed I wouldn't need one. It's not like I was going to be training for the Olympics or anything. I didn't need to get super buff. I just wanted to feel better. But it was an ad for their trainers that caught my eye. It read, "Not sure where to start? Get tips and tools for beginners from our specially trained personal trainers." Well, that definitely appealed to me. Now that I was thinking about it, I really didn't know where to start. What was I going to be doing anyway? Cardio? Weightlifting? I didn't know how much I should be doing or how fast or anything like that. As for healthy eating, I had no idea how I was going to tackle that colossal problem. Hey, maybe a trainer could help. And the best part was that the gym website guaranteed that the first month would be free. Well, in that case, there's nothing to lose, I thought, as I signed myself up for a trainer named George. I wasn't really sure what I was getting myself into when I walked into the gym on January 1st. To be honest, I was already feeling kinda defeated. After all, most people never keep their New Year's resolutions. Actually, I myself rarely keep them. Wasn't this all just an exercise in futility? Maybe I should just go home and give up before I embarrass myself. But no, I decided I was gonna try. At least for this first day. I had to. First, I had to sign in at the front desk. The receptionist was a woman who was skinny like I was, but had some definite musculature. And she looked... Wow, she looked so happy. And my heart ached because I wanted to be like that.
First time in a gym?
She asked as she was rummaging through her drawer looking for a card for me. Yeah, I admitted, feeling a little foolish.
Don't worry.
She beamed at me, handing me my gym membership card.
I used to be just like you, actually. But then I started working out with this gym company, and believe me, everything got so much better for me. You're working with a trainer, right? Which one?
Someone named George?
Oh, I've worked with George! You're in for a real treat. He's amazing, and he won't let you quit.
She smiled even wider, if that were possible, and waved me on through the doors. That made me feel a lot better, and I walked into the gym with a little more confidence, feeling as though, yeah, I could actually do this. That feeling flew out the window when I saw George. The man was huge. I mean, really, really fucking huge. His muscles bulged out like balloons, but they looked about as hard as steel. He was bald and had hard eyes despite their light blue color. Overall, he looked incredibly severe and intimidating. I was fairly certain that he could crush me with just 2 of his fingers. Great, I thought to myself in misery. He's gonna take one look at me and laugh at how pathetic I am. Instead, he smiled at me, and it transformed him from a murderous-looking muscle monster to a friendly, almost sweet hulk of a man.
You must be Monica.
He beamed at me.
I've been waiting for you. You seem pretty nervous. First time, right? Here, let me walk you through what we'll be doing together.
And he did. We spent an hour together just going through a game plan to get me started toward my goal. By the time that hour was up, we'd become friends. At least, I felt like we had. He was easygoing and fun to talk to. We joked together. Best of all, he didn't make me feel like a failure for my state of total physical disrepair.
It happens.
He shrugged when I mentioned how ashamed I was.
Physical fitness doesn't come as easy to some as it does to others. That's why there are people like me, to help people like you out.
He winked at me, and I laughed. Here's the plan we came up with, as he described it to me.
Basically, you need to focus on your weight and your heart health. So we're going to start on cardio with a touch of weightlifting to get you some muscle mass. In order for this to work, however, you need to start paying attention to what you're eating.
He must have seen my face when he said that, because he laughed and was quick to reassure me.
It's not that bad. Your problem is you start out with goals that you can't possibly reach. Let's face it, you're not going to switch over to an all-vegetarian, super healthy diet overnight. Let's take it one step at a time. For now, I want you to cut out the soda and fast food. In addition, I want you to drink this.
He handed me a bottle, and I read the label. Weight On, the one-stop weight gain formula. A Salmon Company product. I recognized Salmon. It was the name of the gym. You guys have your own protein shakes?
Actually, we have a variety of formulas to suit a variety of needs.
He explained.
This one has a high caloric content that should help you gain a little weight. We have other products for people who are overweight or are managing medical problems like diabetes. They're very important to our programs. I promise you, if you drink this twice a day, you'll start seeing results and it'll be worth it. Give it a week and you'll be very, very pleased.
Alright. How much will it cost? I asked. Because, let's face it, I wasn't made of money, and this sounded a hell of a lot like a scam to take more of my money.
Absolutely free. Comes with the trainer program.
Well, that settled it. The rest of that day's session was spent with George introducing me to all the equipment and the facilities in the gym. When the session came to an end, he handed me a box of the formula. 14 bottles, enough to last me a week. I promised him I'd give it a try and come in every day at 3 to start working out. I was wary about the formulas at first. It seemed almost like cheating, you know? Or like a scam. I know that results only come from hard work, so anything that makes it easier is wrong somehow. But I promised I'd try it, so I did. I drank my first shake that day. I was ready to hold my nose and down it at once, struggling to keep it in, because I know how those things usually taste. Hint, like sweaty ass. It was delicious. It was chocolate, my favorite, and it kind of tasted like an ice cream shake. I drank it all in one go. I noticed a change immediately. Suddenly, I was ravenously hungry. After my stop at the gym, I had bought a bunch of health foods. Fruits, vegetables, the whole 9 yards. I sat down and ate almost everything I'd bought that day. It was like I couldn't get enough. I was hungrier than I'd ever been in my life. I was almost worried that I would get sick from eating. My stomach has always been sensitive. But I didn't. In fact, my stomach felt better than it had in years. In my whole life, actually. I was thrilled. By the time I went into work the next day, I was already looking better. My skin wasn't so deathly pale, and my hair wasn't shedding as much as it usually does. I didn't feel faint or queasy. I felt great. And George noticed.
See, what did I tell you? Those shakes are like miracles. They give your body what they've been missing.
That day, the 2nd of January, was my first real day of working out. Before the shakes, I'd been dreading it. But seeing how great I felt, I couldn't wait to get started. It definitely wasn't easy, but it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it would be. I usually don't feel anything from exercise other than pain and exhaustion. But this time, it was exhilarating. I found it extremely rewarding to push myself to see how far I could go, my endorphins climbing higher and higher as George cheered me on. I was able to run for a full half hour, when I'd only been able to do about 15 minutes in the past. I did squats and cleans, and worked for a good half hour with the dumbbells. The more I worked, the stronger I felt. I loved it. The working out went great over the rest of the week. I was feeling healthier, I was eating healthier, I was gaining muscle mass, and I was no longer underweight. I was improving so quickly it made my head spin. I was overjoyed. It was the other stuff that wasn't so good. It started with dreams. They weren't that bad, I guess, just strange. In them, I was a warrior. I was strong and tall and powerful. It was the power that was so intoxicating, at least at the beginning of the dreams. But then I'd start to feel as though I was losing control. My muscles would grow and grow and grow until they were too big. Eventually, they would burst, and I would explode in a hailstorm of viscera. If it were just the dreams, it wouldn't have bothered me so much. But it didn't stop there. The next thing I noticed had to do with my fingernails. They grew. I mean, okay, fingernails were supposed to do that, but they aren't supposed to grow so fast. I'd clip them in the morning, and by that afternoon I'd have a full inch extending beyond the flesh of my fingers. My hair followed suit. It went from my shoulders to the middle of my back in one afternoon. Weird. But I wasn't ready to admit that something was wrong. My life was better than it had ever been, oddities or not. I was beginning to rethink my convictions. By the time the 7th of January, the end of the first week, rolled around, everything was growing. My teeth were the most troublesome. I couldn't even shut my mouth all the way because they were so long and pointy. I was starting to feel like a vampire or werewolf or something. My eyelashes had grown out and I actually had to trim them. Weird, I know. My fingers and toes were growing longer. I was sure I was getting taller. Muscle mass wasn't the only thing I was gaining from these formulas. I decided to ask George at that day's session. I got to the gym early, hoping that he'd have a little time to talk before we started our session. They must not have been expecting me because no one was at the front desk to check my gym membership. With a shrug, I signed my name on the sign-in sheet and headed for the girls' locker room. No one was around at all. Maybe they weren't even open yet? But everything was unlocked. Well, whatever, it didn't really bother me. Until, that is, I saw the hole in the floor. I got closer and realized that there was a door in the floor, with a ladder leading down underneath the locker rooms. I tried to shrug it off, thinking that it probably just led to some electrical shit. But this weird feeling was nagging at me. It nagged and nagged and nagged until it got the better of me and I decided to check it out. I set my bag on the floor next to the door and climbed down the ladder, relishing how easy it was for me since I'd been working out. I almost forgot the whole reason I was going down until I reached the floor. This next part is gonna be hard. Hard for me to describe, hard for me to tell, and hard for you to understand. But please try. I need someone to understand for me because, fuck, I can't do it. I was standing at the end of a long tunnel. A tunnel lined with cages. They were heavy-duty cages, too, with huge padlocks and steel. The things inside them. I think at one point they were human. Actually, I'm certain of it. But they couldn't be said to resemble humans anymore. At least not as we know them. I'll start with the first one. The first I saw was to my right. Judging by the amount of hair, I'd say it had once been a girl, but who knows. Now she was skin. It looked as though her skin had just grown and grown and grown. It was piled on the floor now, a massive pile at least 10 feet across and 6 feet high. And from the inside, I heard a low groaning, as though someone was being crushed under the weight. I looked to my left. This one had definitely been a man at some point. He was stretched out, his neck and limbs and torso too long to function. The worst was his head, however. It, too, had been stretched, so that his eyes swam around in sockets that were now too wide, and his jaw hung open, dislocated from the elongation of his skull. After those two, the creatures became a blur. I ran down the tunnel, my eyes scanning all the horrors underneath that gym. Some had huge internal organs that had burst through the torso and were no longer so internal. Some had giant eyes pooling out of their head, twitching on the ground, staring up at me. Some were still alive. Most were already dead. I was probably only down there for 2 minutes, but it was enough. I scrambled out the tunnel and ran out of the gym, grabbing my bag on the way out so they wouldn't know that I'd been there. I got into my car and sped home without so much as a thought as to what I was supposed to do. Later, I thought about going back and trying to save them, but looking at them had already told me the truth. They were beyond saving. I half expected the gym to have disappeared by the next day, as though it had all been a bad dream or something. But it's still there. The website is still up, and George has been calling me, asking where I am. I never answer my phone anymore. Another week's worth of formula arrived at my doorstep yesterday. I drained them all down the sink and threw them away. I was almost disappointed. But thinking back to those things down in that tunnel, well, I'd rather work out the old-fashioned way than end up like them. Getting rid of them wasn't easy, but I consoled myself by deciding that they almost certainly weren't FDA approved. I've been waiting for someone to come after me. I thought I'd gotten out of there without anyone seeing me, only to remember once I got home that I'd signed in. They knew I'd been there. They probably knew what I'd seen. I'm still too afraid to leave my house. So, anyway, if you want the Reader's Digest version, I missed going to the gym these last few days, and I've broken my resolution. I would like to point out that it's not entirely my fault. So, does anyone know a good gym that won't try to kill me?